for everybody that is here with us right now. Very, very welcome and a wonderful evening. It should be about 6 o'clock now, Central European time. And we have three lovely distinguished guests that I all know very well from different parts of my life, different areas of expertise in working. I will give them the chance to introduce themselves in a minute as well. Before we do so, I want to say to all our guests that are listening in that you should be able to hear us right now, listen in, and you should also be able to chat via the chat function of Zoom. That is our way of communicating for the rest of the audience for the main discussion. But at the end, we will have a Q&A as well, where everybody can then put in a couple of their own individual questions. It is scheduled to be roughly 1 hour, and then let's see if it's going to be any shorter or longer. This is the first time for all of us, but I think we have covered quite some time now during this lockdown. It's time to talk about the long-term effects of COVID-19. Therefore, welcome one more time, and I would like to give the microphone to each of our participants. How about we start with Jorn from the river cruising industry?
Hi, hello Amir. Nice to have you. Nice to have myself here also. Nice to see the participants and the two other ones. I'm Jorn indeed. I'm a cruise director for multiple companies for the last, I believe, 10 years. That basically means that I'm sailing on river ships. I am sailing on an expedition ship. And at this moment, I'm sailing at my chair at home, not doing too much. And just as you guys are waiting for what's the future going to bring us. And you invited me here, I believe, a week ago to participate in this talk and to give our humble opinion about how it's going to look into the future, which is a big question. I'm happy to be here and to discuss that, even though probably not going to find any answers. It's a good, for me and maybe also for the participants and for those who are joining tonight to have this feeling that we can talk and we can ventilate about our situation at the moment. It's a nice idea, Amir, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you, man.
I'm happy to have you here, and that's exactly what my intention was as well. Let's continue with Simon.
Hi everybody, I'm Simon. I work for ES, which is a big American company. Before that, I worked in the adventure travel sector, so I'm in my 28th year of touring. I've worked in 60 countries all over the world. It's all I do. I don't have another job. And in preparation for this, I have spoken to a few people who've recently been on tour with me, not from the United States of America. These are people from the United Kingdom. They would not book as a group; they would book individually. And so it's been interesting to ask what other people's opinion is about the future. But I think the most important point is that this can only ever be an opinion. None of us really know what's going on. And so from that point of view, I suppose this discussion is really just an exchange of views and nothing more than that. I don't think it can't be anything more than that. But it's nice to be invited, so thank you.
Absolutely. Good summary. Thank you very much for being here, Simon. And last but not least, Fifi.
My name is Fifi Franziskus Bertl. I'm calling in from Pennsylvania, even though I'm from Austria, but my wife is from this area, so we moved 6 years ago to the United States. I'm probably, and I think that's why Amir brought me in, I'm covering more the sports tourism, sports touring sector. I'm running one of the world's largest youth sport events in Austria every year, the United World, with around 12,000 athletes from 40 countries. And as part of that sport event, we have, a big amount of tours. We take those athletes from the United States and from from China and from everywhere. We usually send them on a 9 to 10 to 12 days tours as part of the participation in our event. On top of that, I just, put together random sports teams in the various sports and sent them over to Europe just to visit, to combine tourism and sports competition. A cross team going to Portugal, soccer teams going to England. Anyway, so it's the sports tourism aspect I am covering, I guess, with my company and my business.
Absolutely. That's very true.
We are working together with Amir for a company called People to People. Many years as a tour, as a guide, and we call them delegation managers, taking American student ambassadors all over Europe on their 21-day long trips. I've done that for many years until I started my own company.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We know for a while. You as well. And with this, I have three of my very favorite guides together in one session, and that is just a pleasure for me personally. And before we actually start, I do want to say also one more thing, that this really is an informal chat amongst the four of us later on with your questions from the audience as well. We're not here as any sort of public figures. We are not here as official representations from any company. We're not have any authority for other people. This is meant us, for us, and for the rest that work in this industry, more or less. We will be covering a couple of different parts of the effects that COVID-19 has on tourism. We will talk about mainly the long-term effects, but different categories. And the very first one that I would like to throw in right there is timing. The 1 billion, the $1 trillion question. Can anybody tell me if we will be traveling again? Can we travel in 2020 with groups again? What do you think? And I'd like to start with Fifi, because he's organizing this huge event with more than 12,000 people. What do you think?
I'm thinking that 2020 will be mainly regional tourism. That means you travel within your country or maybe in your safe neighboring countries. So that's going to be a very limited stream of tourism, in my opinion. All my tours I had, Americans going over to Europe were postponed until next year. Nobody wanted to travel. Nobody wants American tourists at the moment with the situation we have in the States also, I think. So I do expect some sort of tourism, but very locally and regional. If you have, that's what I got. That's
Okay, thank you. Jorn, coming from river cruising, ocean cruising, do you see a similar scenario, or is it any different maybe?
Well, the question is not so much about are we going to have group travel again? The question is, can we control the virus? Can we contain COVID, right? The question is, do we keep our intensive care and do we keep our hospitals clear enough for people to go there? If this question is answered, then we can ask the next question, can we do group travel again, or can we do travel whatsoever? I honestly believe it's going to be a step program. You go from step A to B to wherever we go. And I think we're just in the beginning of this virus. We all talk about flattening a curve. Well, we flattened the curve in most nations. Maybe the United States is still coping, but most of us are going down in infections. Then we have to slowly start our economies again. If the economies are going up, we have to open up our restaurants again, our bars. And it sounds bad, but every country is going to be putting their own people first. Then you will get maybe some domestic travel. People can go to campings. And then we are 4 or 5 months later. If you look to the Netherlands, for instance, they are choosing to don't do any big events until September 1. And they already excluded yesterday in a talk the possibility to open before there is any way of vaccination. So meaning that for the next probably 1.5 years up to a year, that there will be no big events. The bigger cruise ships in the Netherlands, for instance, are in the event sector. So if a bigger cruise line comes into Amsterdam, for instance, it is seen as an event. So they're not allowed to come in there for until there is a vaccine. So are we traveling again? It's a big question. We will be traveling, but not the conventional way, I believe. And let's start with individual travel in our own country. It's my opinion, but my humble opinion.
Okay, very nice. Simon, anything to add?
Yeah, I would sort of agree with those sentiments. I don't think in my position and any of our colleagues are likely to be working in 2020. Even if, for example, let's just say by the virus dies down and people do actually want to go out and do things, and there's not a second wave, let's just say, unlikely, but do we still have functioning airlines at that point? I mean, many of the airlines in the United Kingdom are already in trouble. For example, one of the airlines has pulled out of one of the major airports at Gatwick. I think that's just the start of the difficulties with our airlines, for example. There's evidence that certain hotel businesses will also be in trouble quite soon. So if they're going to be in trouble in the United Kingdom, even regional tourism may be a bit tricky. I've got personally a work offer to work in November in Vietnam and Cambodia with a company not related to EF. And I think it's hugely ambitious of that company to be offering work to people in my position, because I think it's unlikely the tour will run, but at least it's hopeful. But the reality is I think even next spring will be complicated. I don't think being really, if trying to look into a crystal ball, I think this time next year is most likely to be the beginnings of 2021 tourism.
Okay. I hear that a lot of you agree, all of you agree that this year it doesn't look very well, it doesn't look very promising, and that you will probably focus on 2021. And I think that especially what Jorn said touches on something that I personally feel as well. It's people might underestimate the complexity of this issue because we have not just us involved, we don't have just the companies involved that we work for, but we depend on so many official restrictions from different countries, from different cultures all over the world. And what we are trying to do is bring people from one country and travel with them through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 countries that might have individual guidelines. And then we have other components involved. And especially the airports and airplanes, I want to come back to later. But about this complexity, I wanted to ask you, how can you see any sort of scenario where we are traveling again without a vaccine, given that there is so many different parties involved that need to give a yes, you can travel? Simon?
I think it will be very difficult. I mean, because certainly at the moment, the policy in the United Kingdom is that anybody flying in has to be in quarantine for 2 weeks. And so this will make cross-border travel extremely complicated because other countries will have similar policies to this. There's no way of avoiding it. So to answer your question, pre-vaccine is going to be very complicated. If you think about the current rules and regulations regarding airline security that have been in place for 20 years because of, for example, the guy who tried to like the shoe bomber, or the guy who brought the liquid on to make the bomb. We're still seeing the ramifications of those issues today. And so I think that looking into the future with tourism, it'll be very complicated because social distancing guidelines will be around for a very, very long time. And that will make tourism extremely complicated. I don't think there's any other. I just don't. I mean, even with a vaccine, I think those.
Yeah. Even with a vaccine, it might be difficult. So what can we expect before there is a vaccine? There has been some talking about a corona passport. Jorn, do you think that is that practical? Is that actually something that can be, what do you call it, a backup?
Yeah, I first want to go back to what's been said about tourism, because we look tourism as a border crossing venture, and that tourism should always be, you go from Amsterdam to New York City and then you are a tourist.
Yeah.
But like for instance in Belgium, I believe 80% of the Belgian people go out of their country to visit another country during the national holidays or during the year. But there is a big opportunity at the moment. Those 80% of the people are now going to spend their money and their time in Belgium. So they are going to spend, which they normally would spend abroad, they're going to spend here. So I actually don't think that if you talk about tourism in the big sense, that although tourism, the conventional tourism is going to be hurt because we cannot go and fly to Spain and lay on the beach with 50,000 other people, we can still go and travel in our own nation. And there you're going to have a big pickup on revenue, which normally would have been lost anyhow. So especially countries which have a lower tourism, normally from foreign nations, will now have a lot of tourists from their own people, and they can actually grow into that one. And then you come back to your passport question. I believe there is an idea indeed in some nations, I believe Ecuador is one of them, that they are testing people if they have already had the COVID, and then they will look if there's an immunity for that one. They get a certain passport, and with that passport they were allowed to travel somewhere else, but also in this case only inside their own country, because you have to recognize the passport for everybody all over the world. Will probably take longer than getting a vaccine. So I believe it would be a great thing, but also again within a nation and not so much. Maybe the European Union can mean something for us, although I must honestly say that I thought the European Union was not so strong in this pandemic times, especially when it started. Now they're getting a little bit better. But a passport could do something, but again on a domestic level within the own nation.
Yeah.
So then, Fifi, if you look at this, you are organizing an event. Could it be an option to have a small event? Could it be an option, like Jorn just said, that maybe tours are only within the country of Austria where the event takes place? How are you planning to handle this?
Yeah, first of all, I have to say, we also have to ask ourselves the question, when are our customers ready again to travel? Can it only be just mentally ready? Do I feel safe enough to go and travel and be a tourist? I believe that even before a vaccine, if guidelines allow it, that the next step has to be obviously that there is a good medical therapy against COVID, that we are not, that our customers and clients are not as afraid anymore as they are right now to go to places. Because if I know, okay, I can catch it, but my treatment options are now so good, I might not even have to go to the hospital anymore, even though if I have a severe case. I think the next is obviously so much more complicated and complex. Rate guidelines, what I wanted to mention, I think that pretty soon governments will start, but I'm an optimist, the governments will start, and also tourism boards will start to streamline guidelines. Just alone within the European Union, that once the first wave is over, they might open up certain borders because countries appear to be safe again, but then they will agree on certain guidelines. So there might even be border crossing tourism coming up eventually again, with just hopefully having guidelines provided by the European Union within Europe. With our event, it's a tricky question. What I see already now happening is, we have, 16 different sports at our event. Just an idea. So the first sports that are now, opening up again is obviously the ones where you don't have a lot of contact with each other, like direct physical contact. So, tennis, golf, even swimming, it seems to be safe because the virus does not, contract through water. What we hear. So, you could run our big sport event in select sports that are considered safe sports, and then you could only make it, a national event. But I think it will be boring, because it is the international flavor we provide to athletes that they want to come. So in the worst case, I see for our games, for our big sport next year, a limited participation from only safe countries, neighboring countries. And then hopefully in 2 years, we can go back to normal times, if that makes sense.
It does make sense, but it throws up many, many questions, I would say, because like you said, social distancing is only one thing. Something that Jorn said would be the event industry for larger events. How would they ever recover? And then what you also mentioned is the delay. Things take time. Just because a public institution says it is now possible again doesn't mean that the next day or the next week everybody is back again. Things need to be organized, especially if you work for larger companies or if you want to have 12,000 people gathered. So I see so many parts and bits and pieces that are just sheer impossible to keep an eye on and to keep an overview on. Don't you agree?
I agree, but I also think, we know so little at the moment that every day, and it really is, every day we learn so much more about the whole situation. So my hope is that, in 2 months, we'll have such a much better picture already, what the future is going to hold. But, especially if you work in the event sector, you have to be flexible, as long as you can, you know, and you have to adapt. I think that's why you are an events manager, because you know you can plan as many things as you want, but the real event manager, you know, has to deal with all the things that weren't planned, you know. So you have to stay mentally prepared, flexible, and yeah, and stay informed. You really have to stay informed and make informed decisions, obviously. So you know, we all, my colleagues in Austria, that's all we do, you know, talking to experts, try to get a better grasp on what's the future's going to hold. It's all speculations.
Sure, and to be honest, if I don't want to interrupt you, but
No.
we are in a crisis at the moment, and it sounds weird, but every good crisis brings also very good things in the end. And I think it's just also a moment for all of us to look, how can we change things? How can we do things different? Look, we are in a lifetime, what average expectation, life expectation, 85 maybe. Unfortunately, we don't live 85 years in complete rest and peace. We have times like this. It's a challenging time, but I also see a lot of opportunities. I don't think that it is the end of tourism or there is Armageddon or some other thing. I think we're going to make it through this. I think some of the companies were probably swimming naked, as you say. You know, when the sea goes away, you will always see that some people swim naked. There will probably be some companies who will be bankrupt, and there will be companies who will grow, and there will be companies who will come out as stronger. There will be new ideas for flying. There will be new ideas for cruise lines. Now, at the moment, we'll have some time to think about this and to look to ourselves and to this industry and try to make the best on what we got. I do not think that in any reasonable time there will be any cruise lines. And let's be honest, if you look to a river cruise ship, how well they organize themselves and how good they are with hygiene and how good they are, it's still an iron tube where you're going to put 150 people, 70 plussers usually from the United States, in a small environment, and then you travel 10 to 12 hours a day together sailing, and 12 hours you have the opportunity to go out. I cannot say honestly that in a very foreseeable time this will happen. Although they want to, and if you look to the river cruise ships, they all try to open again end of June, the beginning of August. They have to kind of, because they promise their people vouchers for the next trip to go on, or they can rebook for free and they give them $500 extra or whatever. But it's a very difficult thing. It's a risky thing. And do you, as a United States passenger, for instance, or an Australian, want to fly all the way to the River Rhine? You are 82 years old and sit there and travel in these times. I don't think they're going to come. Unfortunately, it's my business. I work in this for 10 years, 10 years already. I really want them to come, but it has to be safe. And at this moment, it's not economy first, but it's safety first.
Yeah. Simon, anything to add?
Yeah, I think people, the average person will probably broadly fall into three categories with regard to future holidays. I think there'll be a lot of people that will be genuinely raring to go because they've been cooped up inside and want to get out and do something. And that's completely understandable. I think there'll be a group of people who have been quite badly financially impacted. And so going on holiday might be a luxury that won't be in the future what it is, what it has been in the past. And so that could affect the bookings that travel agencies receive in the future. And then, of course, there's another group of people who will be very, very happy to go, but may end up sort of just worrying about everything all the time. And so future itineraries may look different, whereby perhaps you don't go to a crowded place, try and avoid the Sistine Chapel or whatever. Or so I think that travel agencies will have to be quite intelligent in the way that they adapt itineraries to suit people. But if you were thinking as an individual, my having spoken to a few people prior to this meeting, a lot of people are concerned about the airport experience. I think more than anything, I think kind of being in position on your holiday is something that you just want to get there. But I think the airport experience is most worrying for people at the moment. And of course, we're talking pre-vaccine. I think even with a vaccine, I'm making the same point again in the sense that traveling closely together for a long period of time will be of great concern to people in the future. And that's why the airline industry must be very, very worried.
And that is actually a point. Let's talk about that a bit more in detail, because we all rely, no matter what kind of tourism we do, 90% of us, we do rely on airports and airplanes. I recently read an article by the HuffPost, which I believe is one of the most thorough and best predictions of what's going to happen in tourism. It's quite a few pages by Caroline Bologna, and she interviews a couple of experts as well. And one of them said, for example, I want to quote here, "Is it necessary to hand a piece of paper to another human to board an aircraft in 2020? Absolutely not," is the answer he gives to himself. And he goes on to make similar examples of in hotels, or how buses may need to be 20 people now. All these little details also will lead to digital finances, of course. But before we talk about the finances, again, to airports and airplanes, I mean, space is going to be rare, right? The space is going to be, assuming that social distancing will be up for even after a vaccine is here, is doable for our suppliers, for airplanes, for all the companies out there?
Don't underestimate, and here again comes the optimist in me, the inventorism of humankind. Who knows, maybe we sit on a plane and everyone has his own personal plastic bubble around your seat. So the air crazy concepts here in the States, of restaurants now opening up in, I think it was Portland, Oregon, where every table is a own little glass house, so people can still sit at the various tables, but they're all just surrounded by, a glass wall, so to speak. So that's going to be interesting to see how the airlines adapt. By the end of the day, they need to be profitable, and I don't know how long they could, with a few passengers only, I don't know how long they could, offer flights if they don't start becoming profitable again. So that they will have to come up with solutions to get more people on the planes. But obviously, as for right now, I'm not an expert in aviation. That's a big challenge.
Yeah. I think it was the CEO of EasyJet who recently just said in an interview already that if we are not able to fill up the airplanes as much as we are now, we are not able to provide the flights with the services as we did so far, which will result in higher prices, and therefore traveling become again something of the elite, as he said. Is it going to be that dramatic, or is he maybe just over-exaggerating? What do you think, Jorn?
Well, I think it was EasyJet who said that, right? Was it EasyJet?
Yes.
Well, at the moment, EasyJet doesn't have a sustainable business model for its company. They are doing low budget, and in the space is a commodity is something that people need and want to make a profit on. He's not doing very well. Well, he has to raise prices then, at least for a temporary measurement. I believe if you're going to do this until the vaccine is there and you're going to triple your prices, it is also normal because most people only want to fly essential trips. Tourism is not going to solve the problem anyhow. We are just trying to make some measurements and to try to do something which is good for our business. But the trouble is the virus, and the trouble is that somehow we are living in a world where a pandemic is a possibility. Yeah. And there we have to think about, of course, you can make short-term solutions and you can say, look, we fly with 50% capacity, or look, we're going to put a bubble around you on the seat. But this is a temporary solution. And if flying is for the elite, it's not for the elite, it's for the one who really needs to fly. I think that's, if I really need an essential flight to Australia, I need to go there and I have to pay 20,000 for it, then I'm going to pay it anyhow. But let's not think that now we're going to all sit in a Ryanair flight for $25 going all the way to the south of Spain to sit on the beach. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. And that is that I've read in multiple articles. They always repeated the same sentence. The golden age of cheap flights might be over now. They called it.
Well, I think it will come back, but it
years.
takes some time. Maybe, yeah, the golden age, maybe you can say it like this. But the Dutch had a golden age and they came back too. So, yeah, just want to mention that.
It's debatable if they ever came back.
Thank you. Yeah.
Simon, what do you think?
I think that a lot of the discussions that we're having in society in general, not just in tourism, revolve around when the vaccine comes, when and if the vaccine comes. And it doesn't matter whether you're working in tourism or banking or whatever industry. It's that question. And I suppose if you revert back to tourism again, particularly the older traveler may be much more concerned about booking a trip at the moment, pre-vaccine days. And so I think that the future is looking quite stressful if you're, for example, over 60, and you would normally, because you've retired maybe, you might be taking 2-3 holidays a year. The people in that bracket are probably thinking about doing other things. And so even if the airlines are making adjustments or whatever has been said that that's a temporary measure, are people actually going to be booking? It's very, very difficult to know what people's priorities will be in the future. Let's hope that there is a slow return to normality. But I think as with everything else, it relies upon whether a vaccine is forthcoming or not.
Sure, and that's it. Yeah. Even if they want to come, again, it is: are they allowed to come? Can they come? There's a lot of answers for that one. What I would, if I had a tour company or I would be in that position, I would most probably try to focus on individual travel, give them some kind of tool which they can be connected still with their tour operator, but then have a guide in a machine or in a little box or on your phone and travel around like that. If you're 70 plus, you might want to need some guidance. I can totally understand. Yeah. And then you can still do group travel, but group travel on an individual base.
And you mean individual traveling on a group basis, but still provided or organized from a third party, from a company?
Yeah, because a lot of people like the fact that it's all organized. Well, if you go on a cruise ship, you go there for the simple reason that you come there with your suitcase, and then 14 days later, or depending on how long it takes, you can unpack again and pack and unpack, right? So you don't have really the idea that you have to do anything. You're on a floating hotel, you have some great local guides, you have some great cruise directors, you have a barmaid, it's fantastic there. And then you go home and you feel like you've been pampered and everything is organized for you. If you can't do that now, you have to do it on an individual basis. Yeah. You still might want to contact your tour operator, but then do it on an individual basis and make them pamper you, but you travel on your own, for instance, in a car or rental car or whatever. I think that's more something you can do now. And again, on a domestic level or maybe in a neighboring country. So you don't lose your customer, you can still provide them with a trip. Because you can say easily, look, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna give them an opportunity to rebook, but maybe they can only go in 1.5 years, maybe they can only go in 2 years. They might want to spend this money in their own country with the same company on an individual level.
I wanted to add, with all the uncertainty, I think we can still identify a few indicators to tell, you know, when is society ready to open up again. And so I think, you know, because I see, you know, the names here of the people attending, you know, we are from all the various countries, you know, from all over the world, I guess, you know, I see some Greek names, I know, Czech names, Russian names. So, you know, the first step, and we all, our countries, our individual countries are still in the various different stages of COVID-19. So I think the first step to normality is, you know, people can go back to work. Once people and parents go back to work, schools will open up. It will be deemed safe enough for schools to open up. Children will go back to schools. Then the next step is cultural services will be asked again from family from or seeked again, at least because what should the dance groups that safely back, and we can probably people will start thinking about okay, we can play volleyball again or tennis outdoors. Now I can go at least for regional tourism activities. And slowly, so I think we do have some indicators where we know that, at least our national status quo is changing and opening up again. So not knowing what the long term brings, but there is indicators we can all use, I think.
Yeah, okay. Before we continue, I just wanted to add, I am experiencing a bit of internet troubles right now. I hope that everybody else is fine, but if I get kicked out, don't disappear. I'll be back in a minute, hopefully. But in case it stays stable, I hear you guys talk, and I hear a couple of common themes that you're all talking about, which is that it's probably going to be more domestic. It's probably going to be more individual. And we don't really know when it's going to come back. And even though I agree pretty much on all 3 points with you guys, this doesn't sound very promising for our profession then, as tour guides. Does this mean that our profession may have quite bad outlooks for the near future? 1 year, 2 years? Let's not talk about the timing. Who cares about the timing? But sooner or later we will resume. But it doesn't really sound too promising if I listen to you guys. Or am I wrong?
No, I disagree with that. I think we'll be fine. I just think it will take time. And so there is, it's a basic urge to want to go on trip. And there are still an awful lot of people that will be a much happier booking with the group than going by themselves. I think there's still a huge appetite for this. I just think it will take time, and I really hope that the tours I'm allocated for, as I told you, meeting started November in Southeast Asia, an absolute pipe dream, or is it a possibility? So to answer the question, in the short term, it's really difficult, but medium term, yeah, sure. I think so. I think by this time next year, a total guess, I think we'll be okay.
That is my hope too. And that's what I'm totally convinced that by then, therapies, maybe even vaccines will be ready. And I see it the same way.
Okay. Jorn?
Yeah, I can only agree. I don't think it's not a long-term thing. The basic urge, which my colleague said already, is that people want to go on a trip, will always be there. People would like to travel. I think travel is also something that unites people. We have to keep traveling also. I don't think it's a good idea if we go back in time and live back in 1930, where we all go to our own nations and we don't look further than our borders. So I really love it that the whole world is traveling. And maybe this is also one of the reasons why a virus like this is spread so fast. The Chinese are going to travel, the Americans are traveling, Europe is traveling, South Americans are traveling. We all meet each other somewhere in the middle on airports, and it's very easy to spread a virus like this. And this is something we have to learn from and something we have to deal with. But I think, again, in a crisis like this, and with all the brains and the heads of all the peoples of state and NGOs, and I don't know, a lot of other things, they will probably come to solutions, and then we grow again. The world gets better. I'm very positive in that, and I don't see us not having trips in 5 years. I think cruise directors and tour leaders, they will be there. We will not be replaced by robots already, maybe in 50 years, but not yet. But we will keep going on for sure.
Let's drink to that.
Keep going.
Yeah, that's on Friday. The drink's on Friday, I think.
No,
it's Thursday today.
Yeah, it's tomorrow, mate.
One thing you guys have repeated now, and I liked it very much, is that let's face it, sooner or later we will manage this crisis. This is not going to be the end of the world. It might be the first time we experience a pandemic like this. It might be a big unknown to many people, but sooner or later we will deal with it, right? And I like this other quote as well, which was from the same article, if I may quote that. And it says, We've never had a global opportunity to hit the pause button on travel and reset until now. I hope the travel industry and community takes this as an opportunity to get it right once we do get back to travel. Now, whenever that may be, we get back to traveling. What is going to be the new normal for us on tour? What are some of the extra and new concerns that we as cruise directors, tour directors, whatever you call it in our guiding profession, have to deal with from now onwards? Simon?
That question is very complicated because many of us work with large groups in very crowded cities. So it's very difficult to answer the question. I think the new normal will quite possibly mean smaller groups. It could well mean, as I've already said, maybe making amendments to itineraries to avoid crowded places. Maybe it involves bigger restaurant venues, so you're not tightly packed into a particular establishment. It's very, very difficult to know. So I think what's the new normal is extremely hard to predict for the tourist industry. Sorry, that doesn't really answer your question, but I just think it's a very difficult question to answer.
It is. That's why I'm throwing it at you. Fifi, what do you think?
Well, we can already see now with China opening up, for the local traveling, much stricter hygiene guidelines, constant disinfectant. So I guess it's going to be a first step, even after a vaccine, that, there's much more focus on keeping things clean and tidy, and, everything needs to be spotless clean. I expect more rules and regulations when it comes to group sizes, and maybe avoiding certain tourist hotspots, or a more structured, organized time slots, touring of bigger cities, of bigger venues, of tourist sites, where it's even stricter now. You can only go to Pisa on that day for that time. Only that amount of people will be allowed into Pisa, between 10 to 12 on that day. So I think it will be more regulated to counteract all these safety concerns people and everyone has.
Okay, that is, I hear again, maybe smaller groups. It might be less crowded places, larger venues, more guidelines to consider. Pardon my French, but that sounds like a pain in the butt to keep all these things in mind. And if I may throw one more idea at you, what about insurances? Do we have to consider health insurances as tour guides? Does maybe the company that provides the tour consider more insurances about rebooking experiences? All of this, it's a lot extra, isn't it, Jorn?
Well, honestly, by the insurance, I don't know so much about that. I have to give it a thought. But if you look to the new normal, going back to the new normal, I think that the new normal was already there a little bit, because the new normal is that we not all go to Amsterdam and we not all go to New York City. We have to expand tourism to the places around it. There's much more to see than the main hub. So I think that the new normal will be that we are going to look much more into detail which cities can have a certain number of tourists. Like Venice is a good example. How many cruise ships do you want to have docked there? How many people do you want to come there? Is it livable? And now a second thing will be added on. Is it healthy for so many people to be on the same place? And that's going to be the new normal. So then you will have big tourist hotspots who, instead of thinking about how many people can we get in, is it sustainable for our city to get the people in? You can take a look, for instance, at places like Airbnb. Should we have them? Should we not have them? Or you can look to the prices of hotels. You can balance out the tourism very easily, but now we have an extra tool to think about that. I think at the moment we were thinking, what, money comes in, let's deal with this, and now we have to really think about the health of the people. And so you will see, and especially in river cruising, there's my specialism, but I think that we will not be all docking again in the same locations, and that we're going to spread us out much more. And that will be the new normal for sure.
I like that point because it shows a bit more of a flow. It doesn't just paint a picture of before and after, because tourism has always been changing and adapting to whatever a city implements. And you mentioned, for example, who has already had for the last few years this initiative to make the inner city center bus free, to limit group sizes, and that this has been something that other cities also were playing with. So maybe this is...
Yeah, you will get that more and more for sure. This is what a lot of big cities will do now, because they need to protect themselves too. If you look, for instance, I used to live in Thailand for a year or 3. I still travel there a lot. I think 60% or 50% of the whole economy is tourism. So they're really hit hard by this. But they also had the same thing. Oh, everybody can come. Doesn't matter, low budget, the highest budget, whatever. And they already now are putting a panel together and look, how can we change that, that everybody just can come in. 22 million people, I believe, per year can go into their country without any background, without any feeling of public health. And I think we should look into that more. And they will do that. And I think that will be a positive change. Still, everybody can travel, but the world is much bigger than only the hotspots.
Yeah.
What's already said, you know, with the plane and air travel comparison, you know, who would have thought, I don't know, 40 years ago that you have to take off shoes, belts, you know, spill out your water. Rules and regulations. Doesn't scare me, you know, it doesn't scare me because we learn to live with it, and it's a new normal. That is the new normal right there, you know.
It's already the new normal. Yeah, indeed, it will be. Yeah.
With regard to your question with the insurance industry, I'm sure that will become more complicated. I would feel certain that many insurance companies will be rewriting their policies for the future right now. So an example of that would be that they were trying to extricate themselves from any responsibility for COVID-related cancellations. I'm sure that that's a huge priority for the insurance industry at the moment. Undoubtedly, policies will become more expensive in certain situations. Yes, I think it's a very difficult time for the insurance industry. We of course have to be careful because if everyone is claiming at the same time, then you actually don't have an insurance industry.
Yeah, and I believe that has always been a bit of a unpredictable part in our industry, the insurances, and sometimes also very not visible, always in the background. And I personally believe that that's going to be much more in the front from now onwards, because people might need more safety. They want to have a certain feeling of safety now from here on outwards. But I also want to take a moment right now as a chance to invite all our members in the audience to chat with me and throw some questions. This panel now going on for roughly 45 minutes already, and as Fifi mentioned earlier, we have a great variety of people, just assuming from the names from various different countries, and we are happy that you are all here. If you want to take the chance, then please write us in the Zoom chat what you have the panel. I will forward it then to everybody else. In the meanwhile, what I would like to say, well, nothing really. Questions. Here's an easy question. Will we be running around all with face masks all the time?
Where did you get that question from? Is it in Austria? And I don't, is there a law that you have to walk outside with a face mask in Austria?
Only if you go into enclosed venues, not outside.
Okay, well, that doesn't really hurt to do it, right? But I don't think we're going to do this for a long time. We're going to have a vaccine soon, and then it's going to be much better for sure.
That's for sure.
You are convinced that we will have a vaccine soon, eh?
Well, what is soon? And if you look in a period of time, let's say a year or so, I don't know. You know, For me, it's not that the world has stopped. I know that there's a lot of financial things going on, that I have to go to the government to get myself some income, and that some companies have to file for bankruptcy. But honestly, we also are living in a time where we can think and we can contemplate on our lives. And I actually don't mind it so much. Of course, I would really like to go back and take the microphone again, say some nice jokes to the people, explain them everything about my beautiful area where we're going and sailing around. But there's some goods and some bads. And the good is also that we are doing this, for instance. I've never worked with Zoom before in my life. I actually like it. And the good is also that we are I actually got to know my children much better. And I got to read a lot of beautiful books, and I enjoying the details. So there's also some good about it.
Can we have everybody in the audience switch their microphone and videos on, so that they can all, rather than write the question, say the question? Would that be a good idea?
If I manage to turn it on for everybody, yes. Second.
If they want to. I mean, perhaps they don't.
So I
Yeah.
now have enabled the option for everybody to turn their microphone on by themselves, which was not possible so far.
Alex, what do you have to say?
I see Dave has his microphone on. Dave, do you have a question for us?
Well, hello, everybody. Simon, we kind of know each other. I live in Canada, so that's where I am currently. I do work for EF as well, so I do student groups, but EF also has a division of adult tours, which is go-ahead tours, and so the demographics of that clientele are the 70 plus generally. And so both of these in the market that I work in are kind of vulnerable sectors. Definitely the elderly right now, it's not recommended that they do travel. So I see that even though they would love to, absolutely, because they have all this money to spend, they're retired and they have been traveling, for a number of years, they're avid travelers. I think that for a number of reasons that were mentioned on this panel, insurance reasons, just health reasons, things like that, the concern, of the dangers of traveling in this time. I don't see them, unfortunately, being able to travel for the foreseeable future. And as far as student groups go, they might not be vulnerable necessarily for health reasons, but of course, traveling through their school, there's all the whole liability involved and the parent community
That's
being
true.
concerned
Yeah.
and all of that. So definitely those two sectors, unfortunately, I see for traveling abroad, anyway, internationally. I know that in Europe, because I lead tours there as well, tourism relies a lot upon North American travelers, and that might be a while, as Simon mentioned. Yeah, a year is, in my opinion, probably the soonest that they're likely going to be able to travel, depending on how things evolve. So definitely, to go back to what a lot of you seem to be agreeing upon, is that they're going to look at traveling domestically. And for us in North America, whether within the United States or in Canada, they're very large countries, a lot to see and do. So I think that group travel will probably start to exist sooner within our own countries. As far as in Europe, as far as I know, because all those countries are much smaller, very close together, and I think it's in the culture of Europeans to travel, for a long weekend, like Jorn was saying, like to go to Spain, or Dubrovnik, or all over the place. Anyways, you grow up traveling with your families. I don't know the nature of group travel, if it's really in your culture. And if let's say you were allowed to travel as groups in Europe within certain countries or neighboring countries, would there be an interest, for people, to travel as groups?
So Dave, that was a beautiful comment, but to be honest, I'm missing a question. Do you have a question for us as well?
Oh, well, my question was, it was mostly like my opinion on where I believe it's probably going to go. However, I guess I ended it with, I was curious to hear, since I think most of you, except from Fifi, who is European but now living in the States, like you're Europeans and your clientele is mostly coming from North America. Do you think that there is a chance for grouped travel, if it begins within Europe, to open between certain bordering countries, that there is going to be an interest for Europeans to travel within Europe as groups?
I mean, my view on that is that, again, it's just absolute speculation. But I would have thought that by the end of July, middle of August, I think we'll have a clearer idea of exactly whether that's permitted within the European Union. I don't see the borders being open before that. And again, it's just guesswork. But if you're looking at the way that some of Germany, for example, appears to be leading the way in Europe with regard to staggering the end to the lockdown. And they've led the way in lots of ways, particularly with testing for the virus and lots of other issues. So we're watching Germany like a hawk. You know, for example, Germany's got 8 land borders with other European countries. And so we'll, certainly in the United Kingdom, we're watching Germany very carefully.
Okay, thank you, Simon. Anybody else that wants to add to this?
For my business, it's mainly athletes, young athletes, college and high school athletes. So I do expect that, you know, for next year that they're not really in the high risk group, that especially that a market of mine will be eager to go out again as long as they can afford it. The downside is that a lot of, you know, a lot of my athletes are coaches. They lost their jobs coaching because lacrosse, for example, the entire lacrosse season was over and canceled now in spring. So some might financially hurting, but I think, as the optimist I am, that especially the low risk groups are probably looking into traveling again next year from the US, from North America over to Europe, if permissible.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you to both of you. Thank you, Dave, for your comment and pointing out especially the connection between Europe, depending on mostly North American travelers. Let's see if that's going to change. You heard the opinion of 2 of our panelists. I would like to open up another question. I believe you, he, do you have something for us?
Hello, everybody. No, I don't really have, I just have a comment. I live in Vienna as well. So I'm always laughing when everybody says everybody's looking at Germany, because I think the Germans are not looking at Germany. They're rather looking at the Austrians, how we do it. But that might be a very Central European perspective.
Yeah, no, I think what I was referring to is the fact that Germany also has such a huge population. And because they sit right at the center of Europe with that massive, 85 million people? Yeah. That's why it wasn't really a comment between different countries. It was purely that I think that the population size is probably the most important factor.
Which is absolutely true, but I heard it from other colleagues coming from England as well, and I work on river ships, so I actually know Jorn, but just by name, because I also worked for Grand Circle for a whole while.
Uh-huh.
But I also read that same thing on CNN, that they're all looking on Germany and how Germany does it, and actually the majority of Germans that I know, and I do know a lot from work over the years, that are looking at Austria. How are you doing it? And they will follow. But of course, we only have like 8 million people, so that's coming on a different scale. For me, it is also interesting since I work on river ships, and even when this whole thing started, I don't see us coming back anytime soon this year on the river ships, because it's too complicated. And just thinking about the inner European issues that we have, and just for Germany, because it would be easy to sail in Germany, but then Germany does not have a federal system. So it can be that the different federal states of Germany handle things differently. So it could be that in Baden-Württemberg, you can have meetings. I read actually today from a colleague, a local guide in Cologne, that North Rhine-Westphalia might be having gatherings of 100 up to 100 people possible in the next week.
Wow.
Exactly. So if you have that in North Rhine-Westphalia, but then you sail further on, and then you come to another German federal state, and then they have different rules.
That's what I meant by what we're watching Germany like a hawk. It's for reasons like that.
But but that's for our industry, because I believe that it might be buses coming back quicker because it's smaller groups in general. Ships is complicated, even for us on the river ships, even if we say, okay, we only have half the amount of guests on board, then even that will make a trip trickier.
Actually, sorry to interrupt you, but this is a good point, and something that we haven't talked about. We've talked about airlines, but coach companies are in trouble too.
They might go belly up.
Yeah,
a lot of them will. A lot of them will. A lot of, especially in southern Germany, Austria, got coaches this year for Oberammergau.
Yeah, that's right.
Excuse me, sorry. I just meant to say I would like to give Jorn a chance to respond, because you know each other maybe or not, but I think
We never worked together. I only know his name.
Well, I didn't get your name.
Jutta.
Jutta. No, I didn't. I don't also know that name.
Oh, that's okay.
But you saw my name somewhere. That's okay. Yeah.
No.
But what do you want me to react on, Amir?
in general, if you had any comments to what Jutta was saying.
Well, I think it was just a little bit of a misunderstanding. I think that we are looking to Germany is only because of the fact that it's in the middle of Europe, and there you have all these countries connected to each other. And of course, every nation is, and I think especially Austria tried very hard to contain the virus, and Austria did a very good job. I believe you did, and I think you could be an example for how to do it for the other countries. You're containing this virus very well, so that's very good. They also mentioned about bus companies and coaches. Well, they're in the same industry and the same structure. They have the same problems, and one of these problems, of course, also is that they are doing usually group travel, people all together in a bus. But you could easily do 1.5 to 2 meter distance in a bus, right? So I think they will be opening earlier than they will be opening cruise ships for sure.
I mean, the reason why I was looking at Germany is also, especially in tourism, as we all know, is the economic footprint they leave behind in Europe, the German tourists. So, as my Europe and our colleagues know, that's we're all hoping for Germany to open up the borders soon. So at least we get the German tourists back into Austria, because they can really salvage a lot of our industry, summer tourism industry, even this year already. If we get just the Germans back, Austria will be in a much better situation tourist-wise.
Yeah. By the way, if you look to river cruising, there would be also a solution to just sail in one country. Right, there are a lot of trips for 7-8 days to just travel in the Netherlands, or just travel only in a certain part of Germany, which is clear. If you do 6 to 7 countries in one time, I can totally understand it's going to be much more difficult. But these cruise lines can be adaptable. I believe Viking Cruises have cruises only in the Netherlands for like a week or so. And as soon as you get permission there, you could travel there. But then again, you also have to look to the age of the passenger, and is it willing to come? Again, I think you can always conclude is that we need to work to get a vaccine, and we need to, in the meanwhile, try to, roll with the punches or deal with the punches. There's nothing much you can do about it. And of course, there will be small solutions. There will be 2.5 meter. There will be social distancing. But group travel is, to say it's the most close as you can get on travel. You will always be together. If you've ever been in restaurants with 40 people, you all sit together in a German tavern, and there you sit touching each other. How you want to change that now and still have the full experience? And I also must honestly say, we work in the excellence industry, as you might know. Everybody knows that you have to deliver great products, and people make the product, and being together makes the product in 90% of the cases. And if we cannot be together anymore, how much do you going to enjoy then as your 75-year-old American tourist in Austria? It's going to be a totally different way of experiencing a holiday. which is going to be difficult. And of course, there's a lot of people going to say, oh, I'm going to book for next season and I'm going to go in 2021 and I'm going to go on the cruise. I feel safe. Okay, that's cool. And most probably you are very safe on most of the cruise lines. It's no problem whatsoever. But again, if you come and you arrive in Paris, and there in Paris, you cannot allowed to go into the Eiffel Tower. The Louvre is closed because it's very unhealthy there. Why do you want to go there in the first place then? That's going to be also a challenge. You can open up your ship, but there still has to be a product too, right?
Yeah. Okay. Very nice. And that is touching a lot on the complexity of all the different components and providers and suppliers involved. And that really faces a challenge. On Jutta, what you said, I can continue with, I believe Uniworld has already suggested that they might rent out their ships, not to international travelers anymore, but they want to focus offering just domestic cruises for domestic people.
Yeah, very smart.
Might be a temporary solution. Probably not going to cover up the dependency of what Paul said on North American travelers, but just a temporary solution. And that also connects beautifully with the question that was thrown into now from one member in chat, which is temporary solutions for us as guides. Have you three anything else? What are your alternatives? What are you doing currently? Or what are you planning to do until our guiding resumes again? Silence.
It's very complicated. I mean, as I'm doing a little hobby of doing online art history lectures, which I'm enjoying. It's unlikely that's going to monetize, but it's a great project to do because it keeps your brain active, reading, researching, using new technology. Great, fantastic. It's not going to earn me a wage, I don't think, but I'm enjoying it.
Yeah, I think God have a second business here. When I moved from Europe, I'm working as a sports consultant for sports organizations that are obviously struggling now too, and I get additional salaries just from being a consultant to a couple of American sports organizations and clubs that need help and assistance in the various areas of running a sports organization. I do coach soccer, where you also here in the States make money. Obviously, at the moment, there's no income here because nobody is allowed to play soccer. We expect, the next month, to at least small groups, coaching small groups will come back. You just need to probably, identify another talent of yours and try to make some money out of it. If you are struggling at the moment. Or do just the job that's needed at the moment, Go work in a supermarket, stock shelves if you have no other income. I would do it.
Yeah, okay. Jorn, are you planning to do another job or wait until our job is available again?
Well, good question. It's very difficult for everybody, but I must honestly say I live in Western Europe. And we live in a very rich country. And they take very good care of their freelancers or their independent contractors, at least in my case they do. So I have nothing to complain. It's not that I like the benefits of the government, but it is as it is at the moment. It's very difficult to re-find yourself or remodel yourself in such a short period of time. Again, if everything opens up and I don't have any income then, and the government says, look, there's other opportunities for you, of course I will adapt myself and I will be in domestic travel, and I will be the first one to go on a bus coach from from Brussels to Antwerp with 50 Belgian people. I'm very positive that I can do that, and I can do that with a lot of love as well. Although the river cruise and the bigger ships are my passion. Money-wise, of course, for people living in other nations further away, and they have no problem. They have no government which provides them with money. They have much more difficulties, and then again, you should find other jobs, but that's also very difficult. You're not the only one who's looking for jobs at the moment.
Absolutely.
Yeah, you have a situation in the United Kingdom where there are people with degrees and doctorates getting rejected for supermarket shelf stacking.
Yeah. Honestly, sometimes you're being shaved, and the only thing you have to do is sit still and wait until it's over. There's nothing much you can do about it. And in my case, I'm just happy that I'm healthy. I have income enough to have food and drinks, and I can watch my TV. I have a nice computer. I have a nice wife, 2 beautiful children. Everything works for me. I'm very positive. I like to have some debates about this. I stay in touch and base with all the companies. I'm on LinkedIn a lot. I try to talk to fellow colleagues about the future. I have some people who talk to me about maybe next year you would like to work for our company if possible. So that keeps going on, the networking and the talking. Well, this is my industry. What should I do? There's nothing now. And the revenue is 0%. There's nothing much to do about it. If it doesn't go on, I will find a new business to work in and will open a coffee shop if necessary. But I will make my money. And you have also their own responsibility. We are in this all together, but life is like this sometimes. Sometimes life gives you nothing, and then you have to make something out of nothing.
I just wanted to add that it's obviously living as a European in the States, you can see the discrepancy between capitalistic society and, social democracy as we knew it from Europe, as you guys know it. So here you just don't, without your own income, you don't have a lot of social benefits you get from the government here. It's really, I understand. I do understand. Obviously, we are staying home. My family, we are staying home. I get my income working from home. I'm in a lucky position. But here, you're really screwed by your own government in the US. If you're unemployed, because you lose your insurance the minute you lose your job. Then you get Corona. Yeah. I mean, it's just a terrible situation. Yeah, I feel bad for all those people, that lost their jobs. They don't even have insurance. You guys are the ones who in Canada, I guess, they're much luckier than the ones of us that live here in the States.
Just to clarify for our audience members that weren't there in the beginning, Fifi is originally from Austria, but now lives in Philadelphia for the last few years and therefore knows a little bit of both, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I want to come to one more question. First of all, thank you for all the important points. I think there were some really, really important big ones in there. But one of our audience members, Stelios, has been putting his hand up for quite a while. If you want to raise your questions, feel free to now.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Amir, hello everyone. I'm Janos. I live and work in Vienna. I organize wine tastings. And you asked earlier what would be an alternative for some of us. Maybe moving online is a possibility. So, for example, I will start with online tasting, and I would like to hear a little bit. What is your opinion about this trend, moving everything online? This is the question.
I was talking about this morning with a colleague of mine in Rome about doing actual street guiding, like live on Zoom. So you're basically guiding people around the city live on Zoom. I suppose some people may do end up working in that way. Away from tourism, I'm sure that there are many businesses that are rethinking their future use of office space, because many businesses have quite successfully adapted to the lockdown with their people working from home. Maybe they don't need millions of feet of space for their offices in the future. That doesn't really affect tourism, but I think that there is potentially a market for online content in tourism. I'm trying to address that myself by doing art history lectures. That's something that can I charge people for it? Or, for example, you're giving someone a tour of London. Can you charge them for it, or should it be free? I think it's difficult to monetize things like that, but maybe some of us with good technical knowledge can look at it.
There was a very clear question about this trend towards more online and digital at the moment. Do you all agree that there is a chance you would see maybe some risks, dangers? What do our other two panelists think?
I think there's always a market for things like this, but I honestly also think that people want to really go to the place as a tourist. They want to go to the Eiffel Tower. But in the meanwhile, okay, you can do this, and it's a good alternative market. And look, the future is going to be more digitalized anyhow. And let's be honest, it actually kind of works to work from home. As you could see now that all these people who are going to their jobs on a daily basis from 9 to 5, from Monday to Friday. They can also do it from their home, from their computer. And some of them are even more happy with being at home than doing it in their offices. So there's always a market for that. And I believe this market can be fulfilled. But I don't think it's going to be the future of traveling. We should not call it traveling. We should call it, I don't know a word for it at the moment, but it should be another word for that.
Dreaming.
I think,
I
think it's a temporary fix for a niche market.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
So, you want to see everything yourself. You want to taste the food. You want to touch the sites. You want to, so I think there is, so I do think for this year might be, there might be some demand, and the good news is you don't have to charge, or you might be able to charge a little because you might attract, more people through social media than, so they share the costs of you walking around. Something worth looking into. I'm sure a lot of smarter brains than me are already looking into these things, just like Simon.
I think Viking River Cruises does Viking TV, where you can watch different kind of nations and travel programs from all around the world, which I think is a very good idea to keep the people busy and dreaming for better times.
Yeah. One more comment I want to add to the digital question is also when we look not at leisure traveling that we are all involved in, but business traveling where people just need to go 2 or 3 times a week, maybe across and a conference, whatever, and return. One of the articles that I read recently said that this is going to go back because many companies have now realized that Zoom does work for a couple of reasons and very often can replace in-person meetings and actually does save tremendous amount of costs. So maybe that is something more for the other side of traveling, not for us though.
There's no question about that. I think that some companies have been doing that already, even before this started. Zoom didn't materialize in the past 2 months. I think companies have been doing this for a while. But you're right, though. It's a way of saving huge amounts of money. It's not something that any of us probably know a great deal about, I would imagine. But if you're in the cost-saving business, it would be the first thing that you'd look at if you were any company, I would have thought.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Ladies and gentlemen, it's now past 20 past 7, and I would give the audience one more option to raise a question. If there is none, then I would officially close it, but maybe there is one more. Well, if there isn't anything, then this would be it. And therefore, I want to thank our 3 live participants, Simon, Jorn, and Fifi, 1,000 times for being part of this. Wait, no, there is a chat question.
It's a thank you for all this interesting meeting.
I saw that.
Very nice.
That was very nice.
Very, very
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Ladies and audience, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, our little informal chat right now. And maybe, who knows, we will have a second session. Let's see. But for right now, one more time, Simon, Jorn, and Fifi, thanks for being part of this.
Thank you.
Stay in touch.
You're welcome.
Let's see what it's like in 2 months from now.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Let's do it.
Good idea. Let's do that.
Thanks, guys.
Ciao. Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Guys,
All right.
and enjoy the rest.